You are sitting in a plastic chair in an emergency room waiting area at 11 at night. A TV bolted to the wall playing a rerun nobody's watching, holding an insurance card you barely looked at when it arrived in the mail 7 months ago. You're about to find out what the 3 letters and 9 digits printed on it actually cover tonight. Nobody explained this card to you. Nobody explains it to anyone. It sits in a wallet, doing nothing for years, then decides everything in about 4 minutes. Behind that card is a number nobody prints on it. Your net worth, 0 or 10 million. It's already decided how thick the wall is between you and the bill you're about to get, and it makes that same decision 3 separate times in your life. Every time you get in a car, every time you get sick, every time you think about what happens to the people you leave behind. 6 levels sit on this ladder. Almost nobody sees more than 1 or 2 of them up close in a lifetime. What changes isn't just the size of the number. It's which parts of being a person the card is willing to absorb and which parts it quietly leaves for you to carry by yourself. Level 1, 0 or under. Your health plan is the cheapest one on the marketplace. $6,000 deductible. You picked that number on purpose because $6,000 felt far away. It isn't far away tonight. The nurse asks if you have insurance. You say yes. That's technically true. It won't save you from most of what happens next. The bill shows up 3 weeks later in a plain envelope, and it's bigger than the deductible by itself, because the ambulance bills separately, and the specialist who looked at your chart for 4 minutes bills separately too, and neither one is fully covered. You can't pay it in one piece. You set up a payment plan online at 2 in the morning, because that's when you finally opened the envelope. That same week, you're choosing which bill goes first, the payment plan or the electric, or the card that's already close to its limit, and the insurance company doesn't know it's competing with your power bill for the same $80. It doesn't need to know. Miss one payment, it moves to collections, and a bill that was never about your character becomes a mark that follows you into apartment applications for years. Your car carries the state minimum. Liability only, because that's the law, and that's all you could afford. Someone hits you, their insurance pays. You hit something, a fence, another car, a mailbox at the end of a driveway you've never seen before, you pay, starting at 0. And if the damage runs past your limit, the rest can follow you as a debt or a lawsuit attached to whatever you own. In most states, that limit sits around $25,000 to $30,000. One serious injury claim from the other side can cost more than that easily, and there's no upgrade path in the moment it happens. The policy you have is the policy you have. The policy you're legally required to carry was never built to make you whole. It was built to make sure the other guy gets paid first. You've never once priced life insurance. Not because there's nobody who'd be affected if you were gone, because the premium is a number that doesn't fit anywhere in a budget that's already full every month before the 15th. Most people think this level is about income. It's not entirely. Keep watching. Level 2, 25 to 50,000. A real plan now, through the marketplace or a job that finally offered one. Deductible drops to 3,000. You still do the math every time you're sick. Is this worth the copay? And most of the time you decide it isn't, and you wait it out. You don't refresh anything. You just wait and hope, and sometimes it's fine. Sometimes the thing you waited out for 12 days was the same thing a 5-minute visit would have caught on day 1. You never find out which nights were the lucky ones. Full coverage on the car this time, but only because a loan required it, not because you chose it. The lender was protecting its asset, and you were protected as a side effect of that. The premium still stings every 6 months, and you still call around once, half-heartedly, looking for a cheaper quote, and usually stay put because switching feels like more effort than the savings are worth. A term life quote crosses your mind once or twice when an ad catches you at the right moment. You never get one. That feels like it's for people further along than you. If any of this sounds familiar, you're not behind. You're exactly where the system expects most people to sit for a while. Level 3, 100 to 250. An employer plan replaces the marketplace one. First time, the deductible is a number you could pay without panic. $1,500, sometimes less. You add a small term policy this year, $250,000 in coverage for less than a streaming subscription costs, because a coworker mentioned it over lunch and it finally felt affordable enough to ask about. The application asks about your health, your habits, your family history, and for a few minutes you sit there being priced like a risk instead of treated like a patient. Auto adds collision and comprehensive. The car's worth protecting now, not just replacing. Here's the part almost nobody knows at any level until someone tells them. You think life insurance exists for one reason: to protect the people you leave behind if you die too soon. At your level, that's true. And it's the only thing it's ever used for. At the very top of this ladder, it stops being about death completely. Large policies get placed inside irrevocable trusts, built specifically so the death benefit, sometimes tens of millions, passes to heirs completely outside the taxable estate. Some of these policies are never expected to pay out to a grieving family at all. They exist to move money between generations at the lowest possible tax cost, decades before anyone involved is supposed to die. Let that sit for a second. The thing you bought to protect your kids if something happens to you is, at the top of this ladder, a tax strategy that has nothing to do with dying. Same 3 words on the paperwork. Completely different machine. Nobody at your level was lying to you about what life insurance does. They just never got the chance to see the other version of it. Level 4. 500,000 to $1 million. Employer plan upgrades again, or you supplement it privately. Lower deductible, wider network, shorter waits, and the wait is where you actually feel it. At level 2, the closest in-network specialist had a 9-week wait, and you spent 6 of those weeks telling yourself it was probably nothing. Here, you get 3 options inside a week. Sometimes that gap is the whole difference between catching something early and not. You don't notice this level changing anything day to day. You notice it the one time you needed it to. You add an umbrella policy, $1 million in extra liability that costs less per year than one bad ER visit did back at level 1. It exists for one specific afternoon you hope never comes. A guest slips on the front steps, or the other driver's damages run past what your normal limits cover, and suddenly a single bad hour could reach into everything else you own. Most people at this level never file a single claim against it, ever. That's not the point. At level 1, a gap like that could take everything. Here, it's a line on a bill you barely read once a year. Term life grows to match the mortgage and the income, calculated the way a spreadsheet calculates it, not the way fear does. Level 5, 2 to 5 million. A broker handles the health plan now, not a website. When a claim gets denied, they call the insurer directly instead of you holding for 40 minutes explaining the same thing to a 4th different person. You mention a symptom once, in passing, during an unrelated call, and a specialist appointment is already booked by the time you hang up. The same fender bender that took 3 weeks and 6 phone calls back at level 2 takes 1 afternoon here. An adjuster shows up in person, looks at the car, and it's done before dinner. Nobody asks you to email photos from 3 angles and wait 5 business days for a callback. Permanent life insurance shows up for the first time, not term. A lawyer sits in on that meeting now, not because you asked for one, because at this size, the policy already has more than one job, and somebody needs to make sure all of them are done correctly at once. Level 6, 10 million and up. Concierge medicine on top of everything else. Flat annual fee. A doctor who caps their patient list at a few hundred instead of a few thousand. You don't call a receptionist. You text a person and they text back. There's rarely a waiting room because there's rarely a wait. A specialist referral that took 9 weeks at level 4 happens the same day, sometimes the same hour, because the concierge practice has relationships that don't run through the normal scheduling system at all. Auto coverage extends to a collection, not a car, with agreed value clauses for vehicles that don't lose value the normal way. Life insurance stopped being a policy pages ago. It's an instrument now, sitting inside a trust, built by an actuary, an estate attorney, and a tax specialist you wouldn't recognize if they sat next to you on a plane. Here's what that actually costs. Your doctor knows a decade of your blood work before you sit down. Every specialist's note cross-referenced automatically, but you've never once sat in a waiting room next to a stranger, both of you reading the same old magazine, both of you a little nervous about what's about to be said. Nobody's asked about your kids before putting you through. There's a team, a very good one, a team that has never met you in a hallway, because at this level, there isn't one. There's only ever the appointment. Somewhere right now, someone's sitting in a plastic chair in an ER waiting area. A TV bolted to the wall, playing something nobody's watching, holding a card they barely looked at when it came in the mail. They're about to find out what it covers. Maybe it's you, tonight, in a version of this chair you haven't sat in yet. Maybe it already happened, years ago, and you still remember exactly how long that wait felt, down to the show that was playing. They don't know yet if the number behind that card is thick enough to catch them, or thin enough that tonight is the night everything else gets harder too. That card was never rating their health, or their driving, or how carefully they've lived. It was only ever rating how much of being a person, alone, this particular person had already been able to absorb before the card was even printed. Nobody sits them down beforehand and explains any of this. The explaining happens after, if it happens at all, usually from a stranger on a phone reading off a script of their own. Some levels of this ladder absorb almost all of it, some absorb almost none, and underneath every single level sits the same uncomfortable fact that was true in that chair at the very bottom. You were the same person, with the same risk, needing the same care, the whole time. The card was the only thing that changed. The card was the only thing anyone was ever looking at.